If I could describe the Get My Life tour in one word, it would be vulnerability. Showing up for yourself is so important. Welcome to the Get My Life tour. I'm your host, Lydia T. Blanco. Hey y'all, and welcome to the Get My Life tour. It is me, your host, Lydia T. Blanco, and as always, I am so excited that you decided to join me on tour. If this is your first time tuning in, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, to have a moment of your time is so special. And if you are joining me on tour because you've been rocking with me since day one or whatever day that you've been tuning in, thank you so much for deciding to show up for yourself and for tuning in. You all, I am so grateful for this moment of stillness, right? A lot of people are talking about COVID-19 and all that has come with it. And I too have been meditating on, what has come out of this time. And while there are so many things, on a previous stop on the tour, I talked about it being time. Now what? Right? And I talked about not rushing any creative process or feeling pressured to do anything other than just be. And, today I was just thinking about what it is that I was going to talk about on this stop of the tour. And I really want to talk about the importance of prioritizing yourself. Yes, putting yourself first. Putting yourself first can be so difficult. For me, it has been an ongoing challenge. I can't tell you how many things that I've prioritized and put ahead of myself. As a believer, I most definitely put the Most High before myself, and I often pray and hope that, my values will be in alignment with my calling. In doing so, I realize that I've put myself on the back burner, right? And I've used my desire to be used and to stay on a path of righteousness as one of the reasons, if not excuses, as to why I do not put myself first. Now, I'm not sure if you are a believer or not, but oftentimes, and I've had this conversation a lot with friends and family members who are believers, it is a bad habit of ours. It's one thing to say, take all of me in worship, right? But I think in our everyday life as spiritual beings having human experiences is one thing or another thing when we completely disregard who we are, who we've been called to be, and our needs by not putting ourselves first. For so long, I thought that putting myself first was very selfish. And then someone told me that I needed to be more selfish. And in adopting that mentality and that way of thinking, I realized that by putting myself first and being selfish, I was safeguarding myself, or I would safeguard myself from a lot of the things, people, places, or energies that exist around me that I may enter or navigate. I also think about self-care and self-preservation, right? I think that they go hand in hand, but oftentimes self-care can be very surface, right? If it's not done properly. Let me say it that way so that all of the self-care enthusiasts don't come from my neck. But I think it's important to say that because self-care is one of the ways that you can safeguard yourself. But, as it is defined, self-care is the practice of taking action to preserve or improve one's own health. And, preservation is to safeguard something. Right? I think a lot of times when you've come out of survival mode, you don't put yourself first. But when you think about preservation, you don't realize that you could be safeguarding yourself. Audre Lorde once said, caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare. Political warfare. I think that there is something radical about when we love and prioritize ourselves, in a way that puts us first, especially when we are used to engaging with people who may not see prioritizing us as necessary. When Audre Lorde said political warfare, it made me think about being on the front lines as humans, right? Or as spiritual beings having human experiences, right? Not so much political, but there's just so much that we have to wage war against. And it's hard to wage war against anything when you aren't putting yourself first, right? How can you be standing on the front line? How can you be, first in command if you're not putting yourself first? It's kind of hard, to fight someone or fight for what you want from a distance. Let me be clear. Putting yourself first is not about fighting, right? But I think it positions you differently. When you put yourself first, I honestly believe that it positions you to be closer or to at least guide you in the direction that you are supposed to be going. It's about positioning, right? That is my point. Putting yourself first is about positioning. Oftentimes, we occupy spaces and we realize, I should have gotten a little bit closer, right? And maybe that translates to, I probably should have put myself first instead of believing in something so much more than I believed in myself, or putting something before me when I probably should have taken a bet or a chance on myself and positioned myself in, whatever way. I'm going to just keep it 100 with y'all. There have been times relationally, both platonically and I guess romantically, that I have put the needs and the desires of other people first. And oftentimes what I've learned is in doing so, while there is a time and a place for that, and there are things that you have to sacrifice or compromise on relationally, that I have harbored resentment. I have not been satisfied, and I have been very upset either with the person or myself. And it's because when you put yourself first, you are able to set certain boundaries that you may not set when you are putting others and their needs and desires and whatever else before you and yours. I just was like, I don't want to freestyle too much on this episode. But of course, I began to look up all of the reasons why you should put yourself first, right? And your happiness is important, right? To me, happiness is very important. It is not a destination. It's more of a journey. And there's so many things that you learn along the way. I think that it's also important to put yourself first so that you can set a boundary around how much you are giving. I am a giver. I also love to receive, right? One of my love languages is gifts. I think I have 3, but one of them is gifts. And I think that may be like really high on the list. Okay. Anyways, it's not what we're doing right now, but it can help you set a boundary about how much you give. When you are, when you are vocal about reciprocity, I think, that will help you to put yourself first. Or let me just say it like this. I think that being vocal about reciprocity is one of the ways that you can assert that you have put yourself first. In doing so, I really believe that it will benefit your relationship because people will know how to communicate and engage with you and understand or better understand your expectations of them. One of the ways that I've put myself first is by not responding immediately to others' requests because I have to allocate a certain amount of time out of my day for the things that I need to get done for Lydia, right? So that would be my advice to you. Don't always feel like you need to respond, whether it's a text message, an email, regardless if it's about work or business or whatever, right? Take time to respond to others. I think it is also key to say that it is important to know what can wait and what needs to take precedence. And in doing so, you'll still be able to find ways to put yourself first. Y'all all know, or if you don't know, the Get My Life tour came about as a result of me not being my first priority. And in doing so, my health was suffering tremendously, okay? Tremendously. When you don't put yourself first, you ain't not going to your doctor's appointments. You're not going to your dentist appointments. You're not just making good on keeping up with your health. I can be honest about that, okay? Because I've done it. And I know there are so many people who skip out on appointments and who aren't making sure that their bodies are good, right? They're like, oh, I walk, oh, I do this, or I drink lots of water. That ain't got nothing to do with what's going on inside of you. So one of the ways that you can prioritize yourself is by taking care of yourself. There are so many stressors. There are so many things that require our attention, and they take a toll on our bodies, right? We think, oh, I'm just stressed out. I'm just exhausted. I'll get over it. It shows up in your body. And I think that prioritizing yourself means that you put your health first as well. Another way that I've prioritized putting myself first is by understanding and often reaffirming that no is a complete sentence. I am at a point in my life where I have to tell people no more often than I had to before, right? I've said this before, but Shonda Rhimes talks about a year of yes, and I think that is great, but I also think that we have, if not a year, most definitely a season of no. And no, and by practicing no and meaning your no and asserting your no is one of the ways that you can put yourself first. When you are a people pleaser, I feel like I most definitely have struggled with that. You don't realize how much you are disregarding yourself and what it is that you've set out to do. Because your yes, or every time you say yes, you're saying no to yourself, especially if it's something that is taking you off your course and it's something that you don't want to do because you're just so used to saying yes, right? Put yourself first, put a period at the end of your no, and keep it moving. Now look, I am no financial expert at all whatsoever, but having been a member of my community, right, for so long, I've recognized that oftentimes when we put others first, we are putting our finances in a bad position. I write about entrepreneurship and business quite often as a journalist. And like I said, having my experience being a member of my community, I know for certain that oftentimes we put the needs of others first and it compromises our financial well-being. I've already started this sentence with a disclaimer, so I'm not going to give you financial advice because I'm not a financial advisor or expert. What I will say is do not give what you do not have because that is the best way to put yourself in debt. Put yourself first and your needs, and I am confident that you will be blessed, right? You can't give what you do not have, period. The last thing I want to add to this conversation is that by putting yourself first, I believe that you will be able to reevaluate your standards. There is so much that we allow by happenstance or as a result of not putting ourselves first that we don't realize that our standards have lowered. Or even if our standards have not lowered, that we are receiving, whatever it is that we are that really fall below the line of our standards. And when people realize that we are not putting ourselves first, they take advantage of that, right? So they think that they can give you lower quality, whatever. It happens more than we think. And I think it's because we're not being mindful about how it is that we're showing up and how it is that we're operating, especially when you're not putting yourself first. So I want to go over quickly, ways that you can do so, right? I think I've given a number of ways, or let me say reasons, right? Putting yourself first is a form of self-preservation and self-care. Your health truly depends on it, and others who you are in relationship with will benefit from it, excuse me. I believe you'll also be able to set stronger boundaries, right? And just how you show up will change when you put yourself first. It'll also help you protect your finances, right? And like I said, I'm not giving out any financial advice. But it just is so important to do so. And of course, reevaluate, your standards. Look, I really hope that this helps someone who has been putting themselves on a back burner, because it's so easy to do when you are caught up in your everyday routine or trying to find a routine, or just, bump into yourself along your journey. Remember, putting yourself first is a form of self-preservation, not self-indulgence. There's a fine line, and I really hope that you are encouraged to make yourself, the MVP, right? Kevin Durant said, "Mama, you the real MVP." Shout outs to him and his mom. But I think it's time for you to be your MVP. I've been thinking about my mic drop moment, and what I want to leave you with is that when you put yourself first, everything else will fall into alignment. I am a believer, and I believe in putting the Most High first, right? But as we have our experiences on this side of the earth, I value being able to put myself first and the effect that has on me and those around me. So once again, what I want to leave you with is that when you put yourself first, everything else will fall into alignment. I really hope that you got what you needed on this stop of the tour. If you did, be sure to let me know. Of course, follow, subscribe, download, all things the Get My Life Tour. You can stay in touch with the Get My Life Tour that way. Stay on tour with us. Be sure to follow at the Get My Life Tour on all social platforms, with the exception of Twitter, because the Get My Life Tour was a little bit too long. So Get My Life Tour on Twitter. Follow me, Lydia T. Blanco, on all social platforms. And let's keep the conversation going. I really want to, hear your thoughts. I want to know how you've been putting yourself first and how that has impacted the way that you show up in your day to day. And if you're getting something from, being on tour, let me know that too. I appreciate you for tuning in. It is incredible to have this international audience, to see the number of people who are subscribing, who are liking, who are sharing, who are downloading. It is mind-blowing, and I am so grateful. I cannot wait until the next stop on the tour. It is going to be something so special, and I'm not going to give it away. You'll just have to tune back in. And like always, I am so glad that you decided to show up. And I look forward to being on tour with you and taking center stage with you again. Until then, it has been real. Peace.